So just to begin with, Sir Geoffrey, if I could just get your reaction to Liz Truss becoming Premiership. I know she wasn't your choice, but are you happy with with going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had 6 weeks of vacuum of policy from the party at a time when the country desperately needs policies. They need to know how they're going to deal with their immense problems of cost of living, paying their energy bills, keeping their houses warm, feeding themselves. So I am delighted now that we've got a Prime Minister who is going to make some big announcements this week, and people will be reassured, I hope, as to how they will be helped by their government.
And talking about big announcements, obviously energy prices are a big issue for Liz Truss to face, and her policy, or one of her potential policies, would be to increase the national debt. Are you in favour of that?
Well, what I've said before is what I would do in all of these policies is to target the help of those at the bottom end, the poorest, who need it most. I can't seeing freezing energy bills for everybody makes a great deal of sense. As you say, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it will increase the debt, which is already very high. We're already paying over £100 billion a year to service it. So I wouldn't be giving a universal help to everybody.
And she is faced with, as we're saying, a long list of tasks, a long list of issues to come up against. What do you think needs to be at the top of that list, her main priorities?
Well, the main priorities is obviously trying to help people, certainly on very low incomes or on benefits or fixed income pensioners, to get through the winter. How are they going to actually physically pay these enormous energy bills? Are they going to be able to have the confidence to turn their heating on? We don't want people dying in the winter because they can't actually afford to heat their houses. So there's some really big problems. I would say perhaps some of the biggest problems we've faced since the Second World War looming this winter.
And one of the biggest problems that will only get worse potentially get worse during winter is the waits for hospitals, which is a big problem in Gloucestershire, in your constituency. Are you hopeful? I know she kind of mentioned it in her speech just then, but are you hopeful that is something that she tackles?
Well, she said as you say, very clearly in her speech that she was going to deliver on the health service. For me in Gloucestershire, that means delivering on social services so that we can get the 160 odd people that are clinically fit to be discharged from hospital out of hospital into their own homes with proper support. And I really hope she's going to tackle that problem, because we need to go into the next general election with waiting lists coming down, and people can see that actually we're making a real difference to the way the health service is run.
And so, Geoffrey, you were a supporter of Rishi Sunak. Is anything that you wish that Liz would take on board from what was quite a successful campaign? He did get quite a big share of the votes, 43%. Is there anything that you hope she might take on board from Rishi Sunak?
Well, interestingly, Ashton, I think you've touched on it. It is this whole business of producing a massive policy that's going to increase the debt enormously. And at a time when interest rates are rising, I think we've got to be very mindful of that. So I hope that her economic policy is not going to lead us into a situation where the markets start to add a premium to our interest rates, which will actually turn the screw even further. So I think she's in a really, really difficult position on her economic policy, and we'll just have to wait and see what she announces.
Has there been any upside of this campaign?
Yes, I believe there has been one really big upside, and it's this. For the last 6 weeks, both candidates have had to answer in detail what their policies are. And they've had to think very, very carefully what the consequences of those policies are. So I think that Liz Truss, now as elected as our new Prime Minister, will have come out of this whole process stronger, with a better idea of what she actually wants to achieve for this country.
And on the basis of the Tory party itself, as a leading member of the 1922 committee, and someone who will understand what is going on in terms of backbench MPs and understand the party quite well, are you hoping that you kind of leave the fractures behind that of her previous prime ministers, and that going forward now, that even if there were MPs on the side of Rishi Sunak, which I know a majority were, that you now fully get behind Liz Truss?
I think it's absolutely essential that every member of Parliament gets behind Liz Truss. We need to give her that support so that she can come up with sensible policies to deal with some of these enormous policies. And there is one other aspect. Divided parties struggle to win elections. So I think we stand a much better chance of winning the next election if we are totally united behind her.